What's up, everybody? I'm kicking it with Larry today. What's up, Larry? How's ISO?
It's treated me well, mate. I'm getting chubbier by the minute, actually. I think by the end of this podcast, you'll see that my face will be out here, my chin will be about here, and I'm just thankful my stomach is out of camera. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, man. It's I've been finding it hard to eat well and to exercise consistently. Also, trying to be creative with your workouts and stuff, and do the most with what you have. But it's been different, man. I've never lived through anything like this before in my life. Obviously, no one has.
It's obviously a negative thing, but the cool thing about this, if you want to call it that, is we're living through history right now. You talk about World War II and obviously World War One as well, obviously, the famine. And I'm someone who really likes history. And when I went to Ireland last year, for example, the whole thing of Irish people being offended by the term potato is the potato famine that they had in 1945. I believe it lasted for about 5 years. And to this day, their population has not recovered from what it was back in the 1940s. Uh, Now, they'll tell you that that was due to an over reliance of potato. It was a plague that wiped out a lot of the potato fields, and unfortunately, whatever was left was only enough to feed the British people in trade because, of course, you have to put profit above people's well being, don't you? So a lot of Irish people died. Um, anyway, they'll tell you they no longer are reliant on potatoes. Let me tell you, Christian, the Irish people are as reliant on potatoes as ever. If you go there and order a shepherd's pie with two sides, your two sides will be a different cut of potato, probably a boiled potato, probably a fried potato. And if you order something with chips, you better believe that there'll be some sort of baked or mashed potato mixed in with it.
They call them spud or spud back there, right?
I mean, if you're from Dublin, yeah.
I love Irish people, man. I got a few Irish friends. They're great, honestly. Such good, lively people. Very festive, very friendly. Love to drink though.
Yeah.
Love to get on the piss.
Oh, mate, if Australians think they can drink, they got nothing on Irish people. What I like about them, you just like even something as simple as walking out of the bathroom, someone will say, "Hey, mate, how's it going?" Like it's just the most casual thing, and it's the tiniest effort that people credit Australians for being so chilled out, but it's almost like we're too chilled out. If you walk past an elderly person in the street, you don't say hi to them, you just keep walking. Just say good morning to someone. It might actually change their day.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. And you said, you went to Ireland, and you've been to a few places, haven't you? You've been on a Euro trip in the last few years as well. Where was your favorite place and why?
Ooh, favorite place. It's a hard one to answer because I think you resonate with different places for different reasons. I took a great love out of San Sebastian in Spain, and the reason for that being one of my good friends who I met on a Kentucky tour 2 years prior on another Europe trip was with me. So to this day, we've stayed really good friends, and we were with another group, and we ended up getting lost. And we just ended up in it was like the biggest festival of San Sebastian, like their biggest festival of the year. Happens to be the time we wander off from the group and get lost. We have an electrical bull chasing us that's shooting fireworks out. You got people running everywhere. Like if you
Whoa.
record a snippet of it, you'd swear there was a terrorist attack going on. Absolutely brilliant. Just the culture of Spain is really wonderful. I really like San Sebastian.
They
Like
got the
seriously,
fiesta where
yeah.
everything shuts down, everyone has a nap.
Oh mate, after the pinchos, yeah, you need some of that. San Sebastian for friendship. Country that if I take people out of it, right? Like if you're just looking purely of the beauty of a place or maybe the history, I have to say it's probably a strange one, but I really enjoyed Switzerland. Super clean streets. People are super respectful, and probably because of the financial and the educational status that a lot of them live by.
They're a bunch of rich motherfuckers.
They are no doubt richest country in Europe for a reason. But just I love the natural beauty that you see, and it's something we've taken for granted here, I think. And if you haven't travelled, I'd highly recommend getting out of Australia because due to our hot temperatures, you see a lot of brown. Getting out to Europe and seeing those mountain cliffs and the Swiss Alps, you can really appreciate the greenery that we just don't get enough of here. So Switzerland for me is purely beautiful land.
Yeah, definitely, man. I've you know how you see those random videos on Facebook and they're just of Switzerland in the Alps, and you see there's usually like a dog in the distance just running around, and a massive mountain with some snow at the top, and everything's just green and nice and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, man, 100%.
For me,
But
that place was Berlin. I went to Berlin
yeah,
in 2017, and that was fucking amazing. I'm a big fan of history as well. I've been watching World War II in color on Netflix for the last few weeks, and yeah, actually getting to be in Berlin in the center and experiencing the culture and witnessing the history. I mean, the Berlin Wall is still there. You can bring a chunk of it back with you if you want in your suitcase. And yeah, just so much shit happened back then, man. There's a lot of history back there.
yeah, it's I think now, and I know you're big on conspiracy theories and what's going on in the world and what's happening right now. But if you look at what Hitler was and you look at what's going on now, it almost feels like this is World War III. But our war isn't against guns and bullets. We're against a virus that we can't see. It's attacking you, Christian, but you can't see it. It's like the man who's breaking into your house. He's taking everything that you value, but you can't see him, and you can just see floating items, and it's just going away, and you can do nothing to stop it.
Yeah, it watching that series on Netflix, World War II, there was a part, an episode specifically dedicated to Hitler's propaganda minister. Okay,
Yeah.
and this guy was responsible for fabricating all of the stories and all of the, tweaking the agenda to suit the needs of the Nazi Party. And a lot of the German people were very oblivious to what the Nazis were doing to the mainly to the Jewish people and to the Gypsies and the rest of the people that they felt were inferior to them and their Aryan race. And it reminds me a lot of what's happening now at the moment with YouTube, with Facebook, with big tech, and the amount of censorship that's going on. It's blatant censorship. Obviously there's a lot of information that they don't want people to know for some apparent reason. I read the other day that videos that tell you how to strengthen your immune system by taking vitamin C and some other supplements got taken down because it didn't coincide with what the World Health Organization was putting out there. So it immediately gets banned. Like, what the fuck is that? That's the beginning steps of a fascist state. That is Nazi Germany.
Don't disagree with you. The WHO are a strange one. They have been the whole way through this COVID-19 thing. Is they've been deflecting away from blaming China, which I find miraculous. Now, I don't know if it originated there because the original breakouts I was saying were in China and Iran. Now, again, those two countries aren't very close to each other. So why those two countries? The other thing for me is they're the United States' most hated nation. So I thought, could the US be behind this possibly? But then you're looking at the US now and the US is out of control. So I just don't know. There could be many conclusions. And look, there is a greater power at play here, no doubt. Like whether the virus got out intentionally or not intentionally, and we're seeing governments trying to work towards a way out now. And I think the Australian government, to their credit, has actually done a fairly good job of at least controlling the virus.
Mm.
But where do we go from the way out? Because the thing is, this virus is going to be with us, and I don't know how long it's going to take. So the vaccine thing keeps changing as well. Initially, it was 12 to 18 months. Now we're hearing it could be the end of this year, and there's promising research. I just don't know what the way out looks like for the world, and then I don't know what the impacts of the economy are going to be. I know we spoke about this. What's happening in Lebanon is completely separate, but I could almost see a collapse of dollars all around the world if we don't get out. So where's the balance? Where's the balance between keeping the economy healthy so you don't have a huge amount of poverty and people die anyway, or this virus which is killing people?
Joe Rogan was on his podcast the other day talking about that they've pretty much confirmed that this virus came from China. It came from a lab in Wuhan, and that it was actually bioengineered. So it's not from nature. the nature of this virus is not natural. It's man-made. It's been genetically modified to give it that 2 week incubation period, which is very fucking convenient because when someone is going through those 2 weeks, they show little to no symptoms at all, and yet they're highly contagious. So it makes you think. It's like, yeah, I remember you mentioned, was this America? Was this China? It doesn't make sense. I don't believe anything that comes from China. That communist regime at the moment in China is literally one of the biggest evils in this world, and they must be stopped at all costs. They will be responsible for starting something that is going to be very bad. And I hope it doesn't get to this. And I've been talking with my close friends about the very well possibility of a World War III happening with military and bullets and all that sort of stuff. I do believe that this is a war. It's a war against an invisible enemy that we can't see, but slowly, all this information and evidence is coming out saying that this was a much more sinister thing than we're led on to believe, from Wuhan itself. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you, and I could see this getting violent. But here's the other side: does it in fact get violent? Because money controls everything, and money is power. And we're seeing this power struggle between China and the US for so long. And the thing I always go back to is, and I've had this conversation with a few people, is surely the world revolts against China now. At least
100%.
countries. I agree with you, but us Western society, we put so much money into China, which in return means a lot of trade for these countries. Do you sacrifice that for starters? The other thing,
30%. 30% of
we wear
Australia's
the cost, man.
GDP
We wear
is
the cost.
exporting to China. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Big.
would you, as a consumer and as an Australian citizen, would you wear a higher cost of living to what we already have if it means cutting ties with China?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's the thing people have to ask themselves. Like, are they willing to boycott China and use more Australian-made products? But then again, you say it's going to be more expensive, which I agree with. So it's big decisions to be made. I mean, maybe we could come up with something new. Like, why do we have to go back to China? Why can't we just, you know, make things cheaper here? If there's a will, there's a way. We just have to get out of this mess. Right now, it seems all doom and gloom, but I'm sure there are good forces and evil forces working in the background, and I think I can feel it that there's a big battle going on biblical proportions.
Yeah, I mean, I know religion is something that splits people, but if you look at Revelations, if you look at even prior scriptures, but there's talks of diseases, famines. Just look at what Australia's gone through in the last few months.
Oh
We've
yeah,
we've seen bushfires, we've
floods.
seen floods, then come through the bushfires, and then just when you think Australia's going to get on top of it, we had some rain. That really made a lot of drought relief. Oh, but there's COVID-19 right on cue.
Yep, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Australia's been through a beating. 2020 has just been a write-off. Like, there's nothing good that's come out of this fucking year.
Are you a
Everyone,
Simpsons fan, Christian?
I am a Simpsons fan, and it's very creepy how
You
how
know when
well, you know
You
what
know
I
when
mean.
Homer Simpson goes to jump, what's that thing that Bart's trying to use his skateboard, the gorge or something?
Yeah, it's that big skateboard ramp thing that, and then
Yeah, yeah.
he tries to jump it. Yeah.
Have you seen when Homer's on the skateboard and then he's like trying to get to the other end? It's like the other end is a healthy 2020, but Homer's falling short, and every time he hits the cliff, it's bushfires, drought, and then as he's getting back in the ambulance and the ambulance runs into the tree and he falls back down, guess what the truck is that runs into the tree? That's COVID-19, baby.
That was a meme, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Simpsons are so freaky. They've predicted so many things that have happened already. Like, what the fuck?
They predicted an outbreak of a disease. They didn't call it coronavirus, but damn, they got close.
They predicted Donald Trump winning. They also predicted someone would kill him as well. So that still hasn't come true. I hope it doesn't come true.
Hey, man, you know what? When when you can't access the theaters to get stand-up comedy, you can always rely on Donald Trump. Seriously, does any leader put his foot in his mouth as much as Donald Trump does?
Man, he goes off the fly. No script, no nothing. Just wing it. Straight wing it, man.
I got a lot of respect for him though. Like you got to think for someone to go broke not once but twice and bounce back and become a successful millionaire, and on top of that become the president of the United States, that takes someone with balls, and it takes someone with courage and a hell strong determination. Credit where it's due. I think he's definitely got will. Whether you agree with his motives or not, it's another story.
Definitely, man. I gotta give it to the guy. He's just very entertaining. There was a tweet that went out the other day. Let me see if I can find it, but it was fucking hilarious. It was you know how he goes back and forth with people on Twitter. There was one
Yeah.
where Hillary Clinton was like, I'm thinking about getting back into office, and I'll show you his reply. It was fucking hilarious. Um, but yeah, do you follow anyone on Twitter, by the way?
Yeah, I'm all over Twitter. It's a great place. I don't know. I feel like a lot of Australians aren't quite into it. I think it's great. Man, if you want to have an argument, forget Facebook. Twitter's the place to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's the character limit now? I know they had to actually put the character limit up because Donald Trump asked Twitter himself because for his rants.
Oh gosh. You can't even see the numbers anymore, can you? I have no idea.
I think it's like 260 or something, but before that, it was much less. And then Donald Trump was like, "Hey, yo, guys, I don't have enough space for my rants. You gotta increase that character count."
Oh gosh, yeah, he's another. But look at the US; they've already started opening things up.
Yeah, man, you can't keep people locked down for too long, especially in fucking America. They got guns.
Yeah, man. The same friend I traveled with, I was chatting to him about it. I'm like, "What's your feeling?" He lives in Jersey, so very close to the heart of New York, and he goes, in the best way that could be explained, Americans don't like it when they can't do whatever the fuck they want. It's like, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Pretty much. I mean, you can only keep them down for so long until someone gets a shotgun out, and then you're fucked.
Oh, mate. Are you into American sports? I know you're a big basketball guy, but NFL, what else they got? Baseball, any of that?
Mainly basketball, man. Basketball's my chosen sport. I love it. I love it so much, especially now with the new Michael Jordan, The Last Dance on Netflix. Have you been watching
Oh,
that?
how good is that?
That
How good
guy,
is that?
he just proves to me that he's not human. Like he is a serial winner at all costs, no matter what. Like he wants to win.
Yeah, it's funny because I think most people who are sports fans all dream of making that elite step, at least at some point in their adolescence. And when you see a famous sportsman muck up or get in trouble with the law, you always just wonder like, how do you end up like that? Because I know with everything I have, if I got the opportunity to growing up was rugby league for me. If I had the opportunity to make it to an elite level, by all means, surely it doesn't cost you much to sacrifice some elements of social life because you're getting to live this limited window where you can make such amazing money. And not just that, make a huge difference if you really want to. You got the character to do it. You got the opportunity to positively influence so many people's lives. And it's just crazy to me how many people blow it.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts, man. Takes a special person to go to the top and stay there. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Oh yeah, here we are.
So yeah, Hillary Clinton's like, everyone asked me, is there still a chance for me to run for president in November? I'm thinking about it, but we'll see. And then the savage Trump comes back and is like, run! You can barely walk. Stay home, Hillary. It's for the best.
Oh my goodness. He is great. You think with all that money he has,
Classic.
wouldn't you think someone in his cabinet or his team would say, President, don't you think you should get someone to maybe just monitor your tweets or just have some sort of control of the things, review before you tweet? No, no, I'm good.
Just wing that shit, man.
Uh, I think it was a fortnight ago. He was actually tweeting about the ratings that his press conferences were doing for COVID-19. I
Yeah,
was just,
not a good move, President. Not a good move. Not when people are dying, man.
oh,
Not when
Yeah.
people are dying. Sometimes he's just too much for himself and he doesn't realize it. Like you said, he needs a person to stick with him all the time and just to filter the stuff, just in case he says something that's really fucking crazy. Like remember that example? Man, this is why I think there's a massive agenda out to destroy his reputation. Yes, Donald Trump is a dummy. Like he's sometimes common sense escapes him. I get it. But when people try to twist the narrative to make him seem that he said something when he clearly didn't, and the example was the injecting the sanitizer
Mm.
and the UV light, and it goes in underneath the skin and above the skin, and then people said, "Oh, he's telling everyone to drink bleach." What the fuck? How do you get drinking bleach from what he said? He was talking with his doctor, and the doctor before the press conference told him about some of the things that they're studying because they're not going with the World Health Organization anymore, so they're obviously doing their own thing. And the doctor explained something to him that was way above his pay grade, and he just completely butchered it. But the media had a frenzy with it.
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't the biggest Scott Morrison fan, but he's put some credit in the bank for me. But the credit I will give him is every single conference he's had, he goes, "I'll let the medical professionals cover that aspect of it." So smart man, he knows how to stay in his lane.
Yeah, exactly. Donald doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, let's do it. Let's make the deal, guys.
Christian, can I ask you an unfun question? I know we're having a little bit of fun here, but
Go for
I
it.
want to get your opinion on this COVID safe app because it's so split and people are so unsure, and I totally get it. I just want to get like, what do you think of it?
Um, well, looking at other countries, for example, Japan and South Korea, they have actively put this application on everyone's phone in the population without their consent. So they've essentially done the opposite of what Australia has done. Australia has said, we're not totalitarian. Australia is the land of the free, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We'll give you the option to download this app if you so wish. But they put you on the biggest guilt trip, okay? And they do this through, again, advertising, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. And they say, oh, Larry, you don't want to download the app? Don't you want to help people? Don't you want to stop the spread of COVID-19? You don't want to download the app just because of privacy? Don't you understand that Facebook invades all of your privacy anyway? So what privacy is there left? Why don't you just give it to the government? So they're doing this whole blackmail thing, right, to make you feel bad. And I see people on social media uh, doing specific posts to put people on this guilt trip. Now, it's a choice. We don't need to download this app, all right? If you want to download it and contribute to the cause, go for it. I'm going to stay home and I'm going to wash my hands. That's how I'm contributing to the cause. I don't need to download an app so the government can track me and tell me whether I've been in contact with someone. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why do I need to do this to make everything safe? I can't wrap my head around it. And coming from a tech perspective as well, it's breaking number one rule of security, your privacy. So it doesn't make sense to me at all about this app.
You might know more than me, maybe in the terms of breaching of privacy. Like from my perspective, right? I'm just going purely of what I'm seeing. I initially, like when I first heard that this app was coming out, maybe 2 weeks prior to its launch, I was like, "Oh, this sounds like bad news." Because I do a lot of reading, man. I do a lot of reading. I look at what Bill Gates is up to, and maybe some people don't believe he's up to anything. I personally think he's an evil fucker, but
I mean, you both, my man.
he is one evil fucker, man.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of disinformation. He spends millions of dollars on his PR and his public image to make him look like someone he isn't. So it's proof is in the pudding.
100%. And then when you read about all of that and what he wants to do, and then you look at this app, you're like, oh, okay, man, this is the start of that. At least, like, that was my perspective. But then as we got closer to the app and I heard Scott Morrison talking about it more, and look, always take a pinch of salt with politics. They know how to put on an act in front of camera and so forth. But I really think about it. I'm like, okay, take everything else out of account. Let's look at the pure raw materials of this. There's a virus that's broken out. We don't have a vaccine at the moment. We think it's probably 12 to 18 months away. We want to get back to normal. We've managed to flatten the curve. How do we get back to normal life, but track this thing so if there is an outbreak, we can locate where it's going? And then I look at this app and it's like, okay, they're saying to you, at least on the basis, we're using Bluetooth because if your Bluetooth isn't on, we can't track it. Okay. And then the other thing is only if you're only, with people within a certain period or whatever. Like, if you don't have, how do we then locate where this virus is spreading from? On the basis of it, it kind of makes sense to me. It really does. I'm just like, if they can use the app for what they're saying it's for, if you and I are in contact and then I find out I've tested positive to COVID, wouldn't you want to be notified that you've been in contact with me? Just looking at it on purely those bases.
Wouldn't you notify me anyway, though? Like, I would expect you as my friend to notify me if you got COVID and we were in contact.
Maybe so. But let's say we're at a cafe and there's two old people sitting behind us and they don't know us. If they have the app and I have the app, they'll be notified. See the other side of it?
There's arguments both for and against, and I understand that. It's just, when I look back at history, man, I lose all trust for government. The thing is, once you give up these rights, you will never get them back. People don't realize this. They think the government is helping people. They look like they're helping people, but at the end of the day, it's politics. They want money, they want power, they want control. Another example, right? So in the British Empire, when Great Britain went to war with France, they were fighting the Napoleonic Wars, right? So Britain didn't have much money. So what the government did was they said, okay, we're going to introduce this income tax. So that's when the income tax was first introduced in Great Britain. And they said, we're going to tax people 20% or whatever it was from every time you receive your paycheck to pay for this war so we can, beat France. And they go, yeah, once it's all finished, we'll revert it and it'll be all good. So, the wars happened, Napoleon died, and yet Great Britain still has income tax. People need to realize that if the government says they're going to do something, they probably won't do it in the end. They're going to look at it and say, you know what, it's already there. Why should we get rid of it? There's no point. So it's just my trust for the government is very, very low. That's the only thing.
That's fair.
But what you said with the whole contact thing, you can be notified. That's great. That's one of the positives out of this. But for me, I just see it more of a negative than a positive. That's my personal opinion. But obviously, everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, look, 100%. And you've made very valid points. And that's the thing. I think it's always important in any discussion, always take on board what the other person's saying. You're bringing a logical thought process. So I can accept that, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. But what I'd say to you is, what would you need from the government? So let's say the government has pure intentions and their pure aim is just to get on top of this virus. What would you need to hear from them to convince you to download the app? Would it be once we know that we have a vaccine and we can confirm that X amount of the population has been vaccinated, you no longer need the app. You can delete it. Would you need some sort of assurances? Like, what would give you that sense of peace or an element of trust into the government with this app, at least?
Well, if the death rate wasn't like 6% or even lower, whatever it is, if it was like 50%, that would be a problem. A lot of people would die. Not even 100 people have died in Australia. We have less than 7,000 cases. So I think we're pretty on top of it with the isolation thing. I understand people need to get back. And obviously the government is doing the guilt trip to get everyone to download this app so we can get back quicker. And saying, if you want to go back to the pub, you got to download the COVID-19 app. Look, I don't really go to the pub anyway, so I'll stay at home. It's fine.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm with you. I'm making a killing on FIFA. I'm making some serious. My career mode, my ultimate team. It's unreal, Christian. If my team was a real side, I'd be dominating the Champions League for decades.
Nice, nice. Hey, you got your own podcast, right? What's it
I
called?
do indeed. The United Pubcast.
United Pubcast. Nice. And you've had some pretty high-profile people on there as well. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, avid Manchester United fan. Been lucky enough to see the stadium a couple times, go to a couple games. Yeah, I've had Mark Bosnich on, who former Manchester United player, current pundit for Fox Sports. We've had Adam Peacock, Simon Hill, both with Fox Sports as well. Working on a few other guests. Do you know Mel McLaughlin?
No, I'm not familiar with him.
Her.
Mel. Sorry, yes, sorry,
Mel,
Mel.
yeah. So aiming to get her on. She's a Manchester United fan. Again, very well renowned within football and sport. She's on Channel 7 at the moment, so I'd love to get her on. Hopefully a player or two down the line. We'll have to wait and see. But I just think, yeah, just if you're passionate about something, just run with it. I love talking. As you can see, I don't shut up. So why not use that if you've got the ability to speak well, have intelligent conversations? Because I think, I don't know about you and why you started this podcast. Maybe you can elaborate on that. But for myself, it's general TV and or cable television. They don't ask the questions that we as fans want to hear. I just don't, with anything really. It's always vanilla questions, the safe questions. You know that there's a rift between a player and a coach, but we won't ask him about that. We'll just ask him what the roses smell like in his backyard. I think from when you have a fan perspective, or when you take an element of realism to something, you can get those hard-hitting facts that I don't think general television really captures. So that was really my main reason for doing it.
Yeah, I enjoy talking with people and finding out what makes them them. Like especially if I'm talking, I had a UFC fighter on here, my mate, and I wanted to get into his head and understand why in the hell he would get into a cage with another human being who's trying to take his head off. So it's really cool to understand how people work, their
Yeah.
belief systems, and what makes them them. And yeah, and like you, I just enjoy having a good conversation, long form conversation, that's not like, stupid regular TV where they're just showing you what they want you to show you. And Joe Rogan for me was a big inspiration, and the way that he did and conducted his podcasts and all the crazy guests. I mean, he had Elon Musk on, like unbelievable, man. Are you a Rogan fan as well? You have to be, right?
Oh, mate, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
how can you not be? If you're someone who likes learning, you like Joe Rogan. Simple as.
Yeah, for sure. And he's the one who got me into martial arts as well. Just by listening to him and the way he talks about it, it's like, damn, I want to try this out. And I remember I started doing wrestling about 3 years ago, and slowly started doing Muay Thai kickboxing. And yeah, here I am, isolated at home, not doing jack shit.
So, just to clarify, when you say wrestling, you mean the real stuff, not the excellent, fantastic John Cena stuff. Like,
Oh
nice.
man, I wish I could do that stuff, but yeah, it's the real wrestling. It's the Olympic freestyle Greco-Roman wrestling.
How powerful is sport? Because just now you've said that you're a big fan of Joe Rogan. You started the podcast by saying you're really big on basketball, and Joe Rogan's influence got you into UFC, which has then resorted to you doing wrestling, Muay Thai, other sorts of fighting, combative sport. And then I look at myself, and then I do a podcast, and I do a podcast on sport. It is, in my opinion, probably along with music, maybe depending on the personality, two of the most powerful things on this earth. No doubt about it. It can change your emotion. The way that people celebrate when a goal is scored, a try is scored. If you watch golf, you're a loser. I'm sorry.
Uh,
The hoop in the last moment, or blocking a shot in the last moment, those grass moments that sport gives you and the emotion it gives you. Like, if I asked you, is there anything else that can give you the emotion in an instant, like just those instant moments where you get that high level of anxiety, joy, anger, all mixed in on one? Can anything besides sport do that?
yeah, bro, doing a line of coke in Marquee, of course.
Damn it, Christian.
You gotta be in Marquee though. If you're not in Marquee, it doesn't count.
Oh, Yeah. Well, there you go. There goes my
Sorry.
dead in the water. That is.
No, but dude, like 100%. Music and podcasts and sports. Wow, like you can get to some really. I've had some of my most favorite moments, either at a basketball game or playing basketball. It's just, yeah, there's nothing quite like it. If when you build a camaraderie with your team, martial arts is a more of a lonesome sport in a way where it's just you. But at the same time, it's so much more challenging because it's just you. You can't blame anyone else. You know what I mean? If you lose, it's it's,
Yeah.
it's on you. Whereas in soccer, in footy, in basketball, there's other people, and sometimes you can do your best, but it's just not enough at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's an interesting argument. Watching UFC fighters, and have you seen the Conor McGregor documentary?
No, is that on Netflix now?
I don't know if it's on Netflix. I know it was at the cinemas at the time, but
Oh, they got it on YouTube. It's like a paid thing on
yeah,
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah. I was just about to say if you want to download it, but
Mm.
it's so interesting watching his story. He grew up in not poverty. He grew up all right, but there was an element of time where he didn't have any money. He stopped working for his dad because he really wanted to put everything into becoming a professional fighter. And if he wanted to do that, he wasn't going to be working with his dad. He's like, I have to do this full time. So he wasn't getting money. In fact, he was on benefits. And his partner, Dee Devlin, stuck with him the whole time. She was the only person who believed in his dream. And it just shows you, like in any what you said, spot on. Those singular sports, but particularly combative sports, you're in there. Someone's trying to kick your head off. But if someone kicks your head off, every time you lose, that's an element of your career that it's probably going to end sooner rather than later. The fact that he had the perseverance and the belief in himself to say, I am doing this no matter what, and to become what he's become. Maybe he lost motivation for a little period there. I think the Mayweather fight showed that, but I think he's got the hunger back.
Hey, he was celebrating, man. 100 million in the bank.
Yeah, well, no doubt. But when he came back to fight Khabib, people questioned his motivation, and you could see it. I think
Yep.
McGregor, top of his game, maybe doesn't beat Khabib, but definitely takes him further because he is a top fighter. And when you start, but that was the money influence. But before that, he established himself. And unless you have the utmost self belief system, you do not get that far. No way.
Yeah, man. It's what Conor McGregor's done in his short career has been nothing short of spectacular. The quality of the knockouts, the I mean, he does it so quickly as well. He's got lightning
Mm,
in that left hand of his, and the last fight with Donald Cerrone was just wow. He just took him apart, and yeah, the guy didn't get up. He did the shoulder charges into his head.
yeah,
So crazy, and yeah, ended up knocking him out in the first round. Um, but I do think Khabib is a better overall fighter than Conor. It's just Khabib is just on
yeah,
another level with his wrestling, man. Wrestling is by far the most important element for an MMA fighter. If you don't have a sound wrestling base, you're gonna get picked apart by people like Khabib who has wrestled bears when he was young. I mean,
Mother Russia.
dude, come on, bro. In the mountains of Dagestan, the kid was like, couldn't have been more than 8 years old, and he was just wrestling with a little cub, little bear.
Yeah, a spot on. And you know what? I find it really strange that a lot of MMA fans or people who claim to be MMA purists, they hate the wrestling. You go to a UFC event and there's some, like Daniel Cormier, I love the art of watching him dominate bigger opponents and getting them to the ground. Man, you just hear the crowd booing. I'm just like, this is an art form right now.
Yeah,
Not everyone can do this.
people are too spoiled, man. When it goes to the ground, especially, and they do jujitsu, jujitsu is very fun, by the way. It's so interesting. It's like a human 3D chess game, where you have to get into certain positions and certain maneuvers to then get the position that you want, like a mount or a triangle choke, or just like a Ezekiel choke or stuff like that. So it's very important. You have to have an overall game to be a good MMA fighter, but wrestling and jiu-jitsu is a definite must. You have to be good in those.
Well, I don't know if we'll be in the same weight class, and I know there's a substantial height difference between us. But look, man, if this thing's over soon, you know, in fact, I think they're saying on Monday they're going to start talking. Oh, sorry, Friday there'll be an announcement about what's happening with gyms.
Mm.
So, look, if you want to get into a UFC ring with me, man, I'll happily have a wrestle with you. I reckon, especially the way I am at the moment, as I said, been getting fatter and fatter. Keep an eye on the head. I'm telling you, it's growing as it goes. But hey, I'll get in there with you. I'm happy to have a little wrestle if you want.
Yeah, man. Like, come. We're at the UFC gym in Bankstown, and I've been training there for a while now. It's so cool. I've never been to a gym like that. It's got wrestling mats, it's got punching bags, it's got weights, it's got everything, man. It's really cool, and I've really grown accustomed to that gym as well. It's changed my life really. It's made me more appreciative of health and given me more clarity as well. It's interesting what martial arts training does to you and your physique, mentally and physically as well. It's really cool. So fucking oath, bro.
Yeah,
Come down. We'll have a roll. I'll teach you some moves
yeah,
and
I'd
we
love
can go
to.
from there.
Christian, I'm gonna be a little not emotional, but I want to say, mate, I'm like watching from a distance because I know we don't talk all the time, but I'm really proud of you, mate. You've grown so much as a person from when I think I've known you at least 5 years now. And when I first met you, you weren't shy, but I think you were probably still discovering yourself. Someone who, but you always dipped your toe in everything. I love that. I went with you to Rob's like people sell products and looking
Yeah.
at different avenues for health. And you, I know you're into like kind of the biggest. I can't get them all over the place. Cairo currency,
Cryptocurrency.
cryptocurrency. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? The fact that you've been so open into exploring so many different things, doing mixed martial arts, doing this podcast. Like, honestly, mate, just watching from the distance, you've grown so much as an individual, and I think that is the best thing to see, especially when it's people who obviously you meet and you stay in touch with. So, mate, kudos to you. Keep it up, and I wish that every single person you know like spread that good energy and make sure you keep learning through life because if you don't like if you're not learning you're not learning, right?
No, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's good to hear. I've been hearing that a lot from people as well, and it's just part of my character now. I just love to try new things and not be afraid of what people see. This is one thing that really liberated me in my life. I don't care what people think about me. I'm gonna live my life the way that I think is right, um, and be respectful and as humble as I can be. And no matter what you do, you're always gonna have haters. Jesus got crucified and he was the son of God. you know so it's like you're going to have haters no matter what, so you might as well embrace them. You might as well say, you know what, I have haters, I'm actually doing something right. And that whole idea of not caring what people, and this is goes for the good and the bad as well, because if you let the good stuff get to you as well, you're going to become your head's going to blow up a little bit and you're going to be like, oh, look at me, and then you start throwing your weight around. So I think it's really good. I love the recognition, I love the fact that you're praising me like this, but I'm not going to let it get to me. I'm going to keep doing me. I'm going to keep doing what I think is right in life. And without growth, you just go down. If you're not growing, you're falling, and that's one of the philosophies that I live by as well.
With you, man. Unfortunately I wish I could put 10 centimeters on, but I'll be growing, but it definitely won't be physically.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I got a good body. My dad's got some strong genes. I have a 4-year-old little brother as well, and he's so big, man. He's 4 years old, but you can tell this kid's gonna be 2 meters tall when he grows up. So I'm thinking, should I push him towards basketball? Should I push him more towards wrestling? I'm just weighing up the options. Yeah, man. The whole
Chase
world
that money, man.
the whole world is in love with basketball, and I really love it. It never used to be this
Yeah.
popular when I was younger. When I was younger, and especially growing up here in Sydney, it was all NRL, man. and now especially basketball in Australia has really blown up in the last few years with Ben Simmons, with Andrew Bogut, with Patty Mills, with all these guys, Matthew Dellavedova, all going over to the NBA and proving that Australia is like a really top contender in basketball. I wish they would have won
Yeah.
the bronze medal in the World Championships. They got fourth place, but maybe next year. There's always next year.
If the Olympics happen.
That's supposed to be this year, right?
Yeah, it's not happening now. Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah, it's not happening. I
Oh,
think they've said 2021.
very close to that lab in Wuhan as well. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That
What you
sucks.
said is right there, though. Basketball's really come on in leaps and bounds here. There is an untapped potential for football in this country. It's the most participated sport by a country mile here. But
Football as in soccer or footy?
yeah, sorry, traditionalists.
No,
But
no,
yeah,
that's okay. I call it
football.
football. The Balkan word,
Football.
football.
Okay, football. Um, it's an untapped market. So, like with the A League, which it just comes down to attracting good players and being able to develop good players. I think that's really important. Obviously, basketball, it's the prime competitions in the US. The prime football is in Europe, but we're not developing players here. It's so at the moment the A League, the Australian competition. If I was to say to you, guess how many players born in 1996 are playing in the A League? Throw a number at me.
0.5.
Mate, zero. It's a fat donor.
Damn, I was close.
That, that's dreadful. You're not promoting players. Instead, they're bringing up all these washed up old guys. Develop your youth. And then maybe if you develop some players, we'll get some bigger names to go over there. Like, I don't know, but growing up, we saw Viduka, we saw Cahill, we saw Harry Kuehl. Nothing. No muss.
Yeah. See, that used to be Australian basketball back in the day, but now it's kind of grown and evolved to the stage where our players are, at the world stage and competing with the best. And America's always been good at basketball. I mean, like you look at the '92 Dream Team. I don't know if you saw the recent episode with MJ, and that was probably the best team ever assembled in the history of humankind. There's no way you're
Oh,
beating
man.
that team.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Michael Jordan alone was enough to win a gold medal. But you put Magic Johnson, you put Larry Bird, you put Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone. It's like, damn, bro, what are you trying to do? Take over the world?
Surely Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. Is it even a debate? I know people still want to throw LeBron in there. And look, I think LeBron's definitely the greatest of his generation. But really, is there anyone better than MJ?
Well, think about it like this, right? In the previous episode of The Last Dance, it was an interview with Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, and he was talking about the comparison and him playing for the first time in an All-Star game against Michael Jordan, and he even said himself, this is Kobe Bryant speaking, that Michael Jordan was, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, there would be no Kobe Bryant, period. So if
Yeah.
if he admits it himself, then there's no discussion with LeBron. Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, no doubt.
Case closed.
Case
No
closed.
for me, mate.
Yeah, it's just he was unhuman. The things that he was doing, the winning attitude, the win at all cost mentality. It's just like fuck. He's one in a 1 in 10 billion. That's the odds that I would put for finding a Michael Jordan like character.
Yeah, you know what? It's fair. It's just one of those, when they say once in a lifetime talent, no doubt.
Who would be the guy in football for that?
Ooh.
There's a lot of people.
I don't want to pick fights with people. At the moment, the current argument would obviously be Messi, Ronaldo. Everyone hears that argument. Both are in the twilight of their career. The best is definitely behind them. It's a hard one. If you appreciate natural ability, Messi's your guy, no doubt. The way that he dribbles with the ball, it's like Velcro is stuck to his foot. It's absolutely insane.
I've seen that. It's ridiculous. The way he dribbles the ball through
Yeah,
people, it's unreal.
and just the pace of what he does it, and you can't coach that ability. And I think that's the greatest thing about Michael Jordan. When these guys do things that you can practice and practice and practice, if you just don't have the natural talent, you just can't do it. Ronaldo, however, very naturally talented as well, but I watched this guy from the start of his career at Sporting Lisbon, coming through to Manchester United as a teenager to what he became. This was a guy who was very scrawny, mate. He fell down with the slightest breeze going past him. And a traditional winger is just, trickery, crosses the ball. He became the best goal scorer in world football. So now to do that, and you just look at his record, there was a mental period there with Real Madrid. His goals outweighed his games. It's unheard of. Pele did it, but when Pele played, and a lot of people don't know this, and you would have heard the name Pele.
I know Pele, yeah.
When he played, the offside rule didn't exist for a period. Makes scoring goals a whole lot easier.
Yeah, that's the same. You could have the same argument with the Kobe and Michael Jordan debate because there was a thing called hand checking back in Jordan's days where you could pretty much put your hand on the person with the ball and kind of steer them into whatever direction that you want. That's illegal. If you do that now in today's game, you'll get called for a foul. So it was much easier to score in today's game than it was in Michael's day. So I get what you mean. Yeah. You got to take into consideration all those factors. It's hard.
if I'm like, take my heart out of it, it's definitely Messi. Messi is unreal.
Of all time?
It's hard for me. See, that's the thing. I don't like to put commentary on what's happened before me because I can only speak for what I've seen.
Yeah.
People say Maradona was the best they've seen. People say George Best was the best they've seen. So George Best he played for Manchester United, tragically died in his 40s due to alcoholism.
Damn.
There was a player called Duncan Edwards for Manchester United. He made his debut at 16 years old. He died in the Munich air disaster, which killed so the famous Manchester United side. So this was in 1958. They were favourites to win what we know now as the Champions League, was then called the European Cup. They were favourites, and this was a side who was so young. They all came through the Manchester United Academy. They got wiped out in a air disaster. So the plane failed to take off from Munich 3 times, and on the 3rd time, it was a fatal hit. It killed basically most of the squad.
Damn, that's heavy.
It is heavy. So he tragically died, and people were saying like he was the best Manchester United. Like the guys who still go to the games, they say he was the best they've seen. But if I'm just talking about purely what I've seen, has to be Messi. He's just a genius. He's just on another level. Someone who can read the game ahead of time, but then also have the ability with his feet to do what he does.
Oh yeah, it's magic. Magic. All right, we're almost at an hour. Larry, I'm gonna ask you what I've asked my previous guests. It's a little thing I like to call your top three. You ready?
Hit me.
What are the top 3 things you're most grateful for in your life? Or just top things that you're grateful for in your life?
I have to say, my mum has to be number 1.
Nice.
That woman's she's made of steel. Like my father passed away when I was just turned 9. My parents migrated here in 92. I was born in 94. So it's not the traditional Middle Eastern families that came in the 70s. They came here with no family, man. I am the only Lebo who can't call his cousins for a fight. So to see her keep a house running, manage to buy another property, never felt the struggle. Even if I'm sure she struggled, I never felt it. Mate, that is a tough ass woman. God, so grateful. I'm grateful for my faith. I think it just gives me a foundation. I definitely won't pronounce to be Jesus Christ himself or anything like it, but it's just, for me at least, it gives me a foundation to always come back to, and I find that really overwhelming. Number 3 has to be health. I just think it's something that we just take for granted, and like you see in all around us now, man. Just the fact that you just wake up and you can breathe, honestly, that's a blessing.
That's awesome, man. The really good responses. I love them. That's awesome. Top 3 most influential people in your life.
Influential. Again, my mum would have to be up there. It's a hard one, isn't it? You hear people get asked this all the time, and like I've never actually really thought about it. My sister would be up there.
Nice.
We're close, man. Like tight. We're both So we're both smart, but we're both stupid at the same time. 3. I want to say, I'm going to throw a famous person at you.
Go for it.
It's a little bit different. I'm gonna say The Rock. And
The Rock.
yeah, man. Only reason I say that is because he is genuinely so humble. And there were times in his life where he always talks about the famous $7 in his pocket. When you now look at how he grinded to become a professional wrestler, and then he moved into Hollywood, and to now be the highest paid actor in Hollywood, that's someone who falls down, gets back up. There are so many people I could, like obvious ones, like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and people who've made genuine differences. But because they were, again, just before my time, I don't want to just say it for the sake of saying it.
Yeah.
So I want to relate to something that's my time, something I've seen grow in my time. So yeah, The Rock's pretty good, man. I think he's a very unique character, and I think he's got a cool story. And I love that he's always so giving and so humble. So yeah, I have to say The Rock.
He would make a great president, wouldn't he?
I don't want to back. I hope the US has learned its lesson. Stop with the celebrity presidents. Just get someone in who can do the damn job. Seriously.
I honestly think he
great
could do the
interview.
job though. Like the work ethic that he has and the humbleness, as you said, I think he'd be a perfect fit for the position.
The problem with political leaders, the ones who do a good job, they need to make the unpopular decisions. Can you imagine The Rock making an unpopular decision? He'll just pretend it's pro wrestling. I'm just doing a heel turn, doing me. But when I turn face, it'll all be worth it.
That's funny to think about it like that. Oh god. All right, last top 3. What are 3 goals for 2020 that Larry Taylor would like to accomplish?
I'm going to lose this hell weight that I've put on. That's a must. I'm a big believer in put a date on it. So I've said to myself, by the 30th of June, I would have dropped 10 kilos.
Nice.
I'm going to do it.
I believe in you.
So that's going to happen. Thanks, mate. The other one is just personal growth, whether that's in my career and just making sure I'm learning something. So I've aspects in both. I just want to make sure I'm always learning, and I feel like I'm doing that. So that's a tick. Number 3, I think I just want to start doing some more charitable work, to be honest, man. We all talk about we want to do good deeds. Last year, I managed to organize through work a charitable event for Bowel Cancer Australia, and that was fantastic. We raised just over $2,000, which was awesome. I want to do more of that because it's there is a lot of unfortunate people out there, and we live in such a blessed country.
And it feels good to help.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to be more charitable, and hopefully when things start returning to somewhat back normal, I can start working on a few things.
Amazing. Good stuff, Larry. And last thing, open floor, anything that you want to ask me.
Ooh.
Anything at all.
Before you die, what is the one thing that you must accomplish?
That is a heavy question.
That is a heavy question.
I want to accumulate enough wealth by the time I'm old so that in the last years of my life, I can give it all away.
That is an awesome life goal.
I want to spend the first half of my life accumulating wealth, and I want to spend the second half of it giving it all away. That's one of the goals that I've set for myself in my life.
You're investing in the good shit, man. So hopefully you'll get there.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Got to do the work. Got to stay humble. Got to stay on track, man. But Larry, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you, man. Really refreshing. Glad to see you're good and healthy, and we'll lose the weight, bro. Don't worry, it'll come.
Pleasure, mate. Anytime.
Awesome. All right, bro. Thank you.
Cheers.